This is a fight I've been avoiding for almost 2 years now because the discourse around it is extremely stupid. Despite misinterpretations of both characters, Luffy vs Kizaru was and is a very simple matchup with a definitive conclusion. That is, if you actually know how to read. Let's get into it.
Any of you bitch ass niggas that got a problem with me, come kill my uncle about it, pussy.
Luffy one-shot Kizaru. No, he blitzed Luffy twice. Actually, if he went for the kill in this exact moment, Kizaru would be dead. All brain dead takes. Today, I will be covering the entirety of Luffy versus Kizaru. I'm going over every single instance and argument behind them to find out what really happened, as well as who would win in a fair fight. Because besides what people on the internet will tell you, this battle wasn't as simple as Admiral isn't trying so he wins, or Yonko one-shots Admiral. Though on the topic of that whole debate, regardless of what you think of this fight, it is a fact that a Navy Admiral and an Emperor of the Sea portrayed high relativity to each other. I say such so people on both sides don't just state, this group of characters is a whole tier above that group of characters, even though Luffy versus Kizaru contradicts the entire Yonko versus Admiral debate. Before we get to it though, I need to lay out 3 pillars of context. 1. The purpose of the battle. The Egghead incident involves Dr. Vegapunk trying to escape his research facility with the escort of the Straw Hat Pirates. Some use this to say Luffy isn't trying to win his fight, rather just protect Vegapunk, but that perspective makes no sense because if the best way to protect Punk is to beat Kizaru, then why didn't he just beat Kizaru? On the other side, the Navy's goals include killing Vegapunk, taking control of Punk Records and the Mother Flame, as well as retain York's safety. This means Kizaru can't just nuke the island like all admirals are capable of. To be fair, Straw Hat can also delete islands casually, and his friends are there. So in terms of destructive force, they are both holding back, but this shouldn't affect their attack potency or speed. Gorosei Saturn is there as well for the sole purpose of taking control of the pacifistas. Not for combat, but I'll speak on that later. Before meeting Luffy, the Admiral warns Sentomaru multiple times about the coming invasion. Instead of flying over him, he decides to give a fair match. This is due to the fact of Borsalino and Sentomaru being friends for at least 20 years. Bringing us to the second point, Kizaru's mental nerf. See, it is explained multiple times by many powerful characters that hesitation, unkempt emotion, and unsureness leads to fighters being weaker. It makes sense because One Piece's power system is based on willpower, which requires one to be firm in their actions/beliefs. It's also a basic concept in literally every other shonen manga and very applicable to real life as well. In One Piece, there are very many practical displays of this. Emotions are what caused Big Mom to be less durable, Katakuri to lose Future Sight, and Garp to be hurt by a punch from pre-time skip Luffy. In fact, 2 chapters before Luffy versus Kizaru, we see another admiral conflicted from fighting a longtime friend. This conflict is pointed out as the main factor making him weaker twice. Borsalino has known Vegapunk and Sentomaru for up to 2 decades, as he was the government agent tasked with watching over them. He knows the tragedy of Kuma's family, plus bonded with them multiple times over the span of 6 months. Now the admiral is being forced to kill all of these people who he knows have done nothing wrong, an idea he detests multiple times, and there are instances where Kizaru just stands around to chat, regardless of the fact he could blitz or one-shot all of them. This isn't just his slow nature either, as we've seen him fight in a regular instance against the worst generation and he mopped the floor with them. He almost deleted the Straw Hats if it wasn't for Kuma. Then, at the end of Egghead, the author makes it as clear as possible, having Kizaru cry to his superior about killing a close friend in his own words. There's much more evidence to add, but Kizaru is mentally nerfed while fighting Luffy, meaning he is not as powerful as he can be. There is genuinely no other way to interpret it. However, even if you want to be that guy and say we as the audience can't make inferences on something so obvious, the mental nerf doesn't really matter. As said, Straw Hat and Kizaru portray high relativity regardless. It's very clear they're on the same tier of strength, or else one would beat the other with noticeable ease. Speaking of ease though, point 3. Advanced Conqueror's Haki. The portrayal of this power has been weird. It's not only Luffy versus Kizaru. There are other characters we know have Advanced Conqueror's Haki, we just don't see the indicators. which is important because it's a very large buff to both power and speed. So I'm gonna say it now, if you think Luffy isn't using ACOG throughout all of his fights with the Gorosei or Kizaru, then okay, video over. However, you would also be conceding Straw Hat does not care about the lives of his friends or the punks. Because how about instead of letting Vegapunk literally die, why not use Advanced Conqueror's Haki to beat the enemies easily? So it is the safest option to assume Luffy was using ACOG. Got all that? Good, because we're not even on the first punch. So before they even see each other, Luffy senses Kizaru's spiritual pressure, exclaiming, "Someone strong is here." He says this while mid-sweat. That already tells us the battle is not going to be easy. The Admiral beats Sentomaru with 0 difficulty, then Luffy is fully recovered from Lucci/the Seraphim the previous day. Physically, they're both 100%. Our two main fighters meet. Base Luffy then speeds across with a kick, Kizaru blocks, then Straw Hat references Rayleigh. This match in general is a very personal affair for him as Kizaru destroyed the whole crew 2 years ago. Cut to 1092, we see Luffy has gone into Snake Man, which is most likely being paired with Future Sight. Now we can tell this isn't just a casual affair where Luffy goes Gear 5 just cuz, as he's pacing himself. He looks quite serious, meanwhile Kizaru hasn't even broken a sweat. All of Snake Man's hits are blocked with little difficulty, although he does state he understands how Kaido was defeated. Admiral fans like to use this against Kaido, but it doesn't mean anything. Obviously Kizaru does not have the full context of that fight. Luffy asks why he wants to kill Vegapunk, the Admiral beams away stating he does not want to, admitting it out loud. Kizaru fans also count this as a blitz, yet that doesn't really work. The Light Fruit goes for Kizaru's attack speed and travel speed. Straw Hat only has light speed combat prowess, which is why he never leaves the island. He cannot travel long distances that fast. Borsalino states he's known Vega for a long time, plus wants Luffy to stay out of this, before then bolting back to the island, actually blitzing Snake Man completely. Of course, the panel before this is contentious, as many people think Luffy was just blinded by the light, though that doesn't matter because observation haki goes beyond physical vision. We have seen him use Future Sight eyes closed. There's also a chicken nugget argument stating Luffy parried the attack but got overpowered. There is no indication of such besides a hand motion or something. Even so, this is the panel where Luffy is first perceiving Kizaru as shown by the visual effect and the text box. He's not reacting to anything. Anyways, the kick sends Luffy flying through the mech and the Frontier Dome. Keep in mind Kizaru could chase Luffy while he's in freefall, but whatever. He's too busy having a flashback about how excited Vegapunk was when building the Vega Force, the mech Kizaru just destroyed. Though this leads us into one of the most annoying debates about the fight. After Luffy is dealt with, Kizaru continues on to the lab. He encounters Frankie, Boney, plus the Vegapunks. Instead of blitzing all of them with his Snake Man level speed, he stops to talk. He can kill Vegapunk right here and complete his mission, but instead decides to speak first. This allows Straw Hat to get back just in time to grab Kizaru in Gear 5th. To do it, he had to go through the Laser Dome again, to which he states, "Almost thought I was gonna die going through that barrier twice." Quite the annoying statement because people swear up and down it means Luffy is on the verge of death throughout the battle, even though this is most likely hyperbole and the author himself agrees. See, right before that, Kizaru pushed Boney through the Laser Dome, again when he could have just easily kicked her in half. When Boney goes through the dome, she sustains mild burns of which she shrugs off in the next chapters. That should tell you how much of an actual threat it is. But even so, if you think Gear 5, Luffy's most hyperbolic form, is being literal with this statement, then you would be conceding he only has 2 times the durability and endurance of Jewelry Boney, a Vice Admiral level character. Obviously, that's not true, yet let's continue with said logic. The Laser Dome that y'all think is so powerful is based off of Kizaru's fruit. This is literally just a feat for him. People will say the Admiral has bad attack power, but then turn around to say Luffy was almost killed by his lasers. That's fucking hilarious. Anyways, With Kizaru in the palm of his hand, Luffy decides to toss him out into the ocean. Many like to say the infamous line of, if he decided to squeeze his hands, Kizaru is literally dead. There's literally no other way to interpret it. And while technically true, this would never happen in an actual fight. The only reason Luffy got a hold on Kizaru was due to him being off guard. You could claim observation haki, but observation isn't on all the time, especially when Kizaru isn't fighting anyone, as well as thinking Luffy is outside of the dome. Though if you do want to claim observation, go ahead, because Luffy has a way worse showing of it in a second. Yet to be fair, the first time Kizaru sweats is when he sees Gear 5, indicating it's real shit. The Admiral is darted towards the ocean, yet he remains very calm, waiting until the last second to fly up. He then transports light clones back to the island, all of which summon swords to assault Luffy. Straw Hat states he doesn't know who the real one is. Fortunately though, the clones seem to be dummies as he tricks and one-taps them easily. Meanwhile, Kizaru is down in the lab choking out Usopp. Luffy is completely taken aback, stating himself, he tricked me. Meaning, if Kizaru decided to do anything else, Luffy would be none the wiser. Observation haki, be damned. The Admiral could have stabbed Luffy off guard, gone to find Vegapunk at light speeds, or actually kill the Straw Hats in the lab, but no, he lightly chokes out Usopp, aka waits for Luffy to catch him. Hell, he could have made another clone in the place of choking Usopp to distract Luffy while the real version goes to find Vegapunk, in which case Luffy is truly finished as he barely protects Punk by intercepting a laser after all of that. He then takes internal damage in the process. Keep in mind, after pushing Boney through the laser cage, Kizaru perception blitzed Frankie and found Vegapunk instantly. He had zero trouble doing it the first time. This section makes Straw Hat look fucking terrible. Again, in an actual fight, Kizaru would have just off-guarded Luffy after the clones were dealt with. Moving into 1094, we have the most telling panel in the entire match. This. Literally just this establishing shot. It shows the two fighters have been going back and forth for an unquantifiable amount of time. No one blitzed anyone, no one one-shot anyone, they just go relative. And I'm not saying this in a Kizaru stomps way, no. You can see both of them have more battle damage plus are short of breath. Kizaru then shoots away, Luffy giving chase. Saturn also appears on the island at this time. The Admiral catches up to the Vegapunk, near missing it. The miss as well as the tactic is very sus. We've seen in Marineford Kizaru could snipe a small key from multiple meters away, yet he fails on such a large target here. I also don't want to be too nitpicky about his powers, but why not just send light clones to cut it down? Continuing on, we have the most important part of the battle. I truly believe if this specific scene didn't happen, then people would be much less biased in favor of Luffy. But that's just copium. Luffy catches up, charging a muscle balloon. Kizaru's attention leads to him, stating Straw Hat must be at his limit by now. He pops Luffy with a straight-on laser, though it has disastrous effects. The force of the laser throws off the balance of Luffy's balloon, causing him to cartoonishly spin. However, he takes advantage of this, using the momentum to slam a named attack into his opponent's head. Despite my copium from earlier, I think this is a legitimate feat. People say Kizaru was off guard, yet the simple fact is, Luffy outplayed him. The real problem is, this is the end of the fight in quotations. In conjunction with everything I mentioned earlier, it leads fans to assume Luffy one-shot Kizaru. It's also boosted by the fact that Kizaru didn't get his own good attack in on Luffy. But as I already laid out, Kizaru has had the upper hand multiple times. Even so, Luffy runs out of stamina completely after this, leading us to the next section and why Kizaru beats Luffy. On 1095, both Luffy and Kizaru are downed, Saturn watching over them. With the Gorosei here, Borsalino doesn't necessarily need to contribute anymore. Some actually argue the Admiral is fine, just letting Saturn do the work he doesn't want to. The Noble does state himself the Admiral was slower than usual, yet I'll disregard all that. Both of the original fighters are knocked with little chance of recovery. A lot of people like to say Luffy could just regenerate like he did against Kaido, but that's false. He states I'm at my limit, whereas against Kaido he refuted that exact statement. His friends are in more immediate danger unlike the previous situation, so the question is again, why didn't he just regenerate? Straw Hat is cooked. So cooked in fact, he gets hurt by a normal punch from Frankie. No haki whatsoever, and he's able to damage Luffy with blunt force. The strongest good guy is a raisin, the other good guys can't move because of Saturn's powers, Sentomaru is captured, and Boney is about to be killed. Though there might be a way out of this if Luffy could just eat something. We see Borsalino is thinking about all of these things, so in an act of providence, he gives Luffy food. He perception blitzed everyone in the vicinity to avoid suspicion besides probably Saturn, but that doesn't matter because he was focused on Boney. Next time we see Kizaru, he's in a different position. Then when the Marines ask who gave Straw Hat the food, he replies with ellipses, the universal sign for omission of words / hidden intent. This confirms two ideas. 1. Kizaru was 100% without a shadow of a doubt mentally nerfed, as he quite literally aids the enemy in their efforts. Which also soft confirms he could have done much more damage to Luffy, as I said earlier. More importantly, point 2. In a regular matchup scenario, even if every single variable went exactly the same and they both get knocked with Luffy's final attack, Kizaru would get up first to kill Luffy, winning the fight with high difficulty. For those who don't know, Oda confirmed the Admiral delivered the food in an SPS. However, the problem is he didn't exactly state Kizaru gave Luffy food. It's very obvious what he means though. If you actually read his answer, you'll see the only people who go against it have flat earther levels of denial. Since they do exist, I was going to debunk all of their arguments. However, none of this matters, because even if we assume someone else saved Luffy, Kizaru gets up while he's still eating. The first thing he does is pointlessly defend Saturn from Frankie even though he can heal. The Admiral could have very well gone over to kill Luffy, or do both at the same time. He can conjure clones. So the rest of the fight doesn't really matter. Kizaru would beat Luffy in a regular scenario, that's been proven. Though what happens in the next few sections is used to refute the idea of a mental nerf. Because in a shocking turn of events, the Admiral kills Vegapunk. But do you know who he does this in front of? Saturn. When you actually look at all the instances of Kizaru meeting Punk before this, it's clear the only reason he's completing his mission now is due to his superior. Saint Saturn had already fatally wounded Vegapunk prior. Kizaru is only finishing his job because he's being watched, as well as sparing his friend from a slow, agonizing bleed out. Vegapunk himself said that would happen. In fact, out of all the moments they were face to face, this is the hardest one to kill Punk. Every other time he was defenseless, but now Kizaru has to blitz Sanji, yet he still insta-kills his target. That shows he could have done such at any time. Then there's the final illiterate argument. If Kizaru didn't want to kill his friends, why did he do it? Why didn't he help defeat Saturn or just not listen to him? This argument, again, is completely idiotic. See, the three original admirals all have their own specific sense of justice. Aokiji's lazy justice caused him to abandon the navy in order to better the world in his own way. Akainu's absolute justice led to him being the fleet admiral, aka the direct servant of the celestial dragons. Kizaru was always caught in the middle, a fence sitter who represents unclear justice, which is terrible in a situation like this. A situation where he's torn between two sides, so he performs contradictory actions. It's ironic how One Piece fans pride the series on having an amazing narrative with detailed side characters, yet can't comprehend those characters going anywhere beyond good or evil. Anyways, after this, Kizaru and Saturn are grabbed by Luffy. Oh my god, a Yongo beating two admirals, it's child's play! But literally, who gives a fuck, because at this point, Kizaru isn't trying. He already completed his mission, not wanting to fight anymore. This is shown when he's thrown into a battleship, then lies to his subordinates about being wounded. Nor does he do anything for the rest of the arc. The Admiral's own Beaver card entry states he reached his limit when killing Vegapunk, not by fighting Luffy. So yeah, in conclusion, Luffy versus Kizaru was very simple. I know people will rip into me and say, you needed 20 minutes to explain why your character wins when the simplest answer is right in front of you. But realize most of this video was just me shooting down arguments. If you actually analyze this fight without trying to push an agenda, you'll see Oda already told us it was going to be difficult beforehand. He then had Kizaru easily outspeed Luffy's second fastest form, before finally making the two stalemate in a battle where one was holding back so much that he purposefully aided his opponent in order to solve a personal issue. In a normal one-on-one matchup, the Admiral would win, most likely with high difficulty. There was much more I could have mentioned, so I'll leave a mega thread in the pinned comment. Finally, I can stop hearing about this bullshit. Although if Luffy does punch someone without touching them in the future, I'll delete this entire video.